Hey guys, welcome back. Most of the snow has melted off of our Southwest Michigan property, so tonight the family and I are going to take a walk to look for some shed antlers. So in this video, as we move from location to location, I'll explain why we're focusing on these particular areas. And we've actually had a pretty successful shed season thus far. We've already found 4 sheds in the past 2 weeks. So as we move through the property, I'll kind of show you where we found those sheds and why those sheds were there. All 4 of the antlers that we have found thus far were from 1.5-year-old bucks, but there were 2 2.5-year-old bucks that were using this property up until about mid-January. Not really getting my hopes up, but if we can find those sheds, it would be pretty cool. So let's get back there and start looking for some sheds. This is where we actually found one of our sheds earlier this season, officially the smallest shed I've ever found. But this is one of the, I guess, winter bedding locations on our property. It doesn't really look like it would be because there's not really a lot of cover here, but it's adjacent to one of our late season food sources, and it's kind of right by our house. And so because we're not really going back on our property that much, the deer actually start bedding right next to the food source. So because the deer are bedding here during the winter months when they're dropping their antlers, this is a great place to look for shed antlers. You don't really want to be looking for the sheds where the deer are during the hunting season. You want to be looking for these sheds where the deer are during late January, February, early March, when they're going to be dropping their antlers. And this particular location in this whole area is where the deer are kind of bedding down in next to our food plot in January and February. So we're going to kind of look around in here, see if we can find another antler. You ready, buddy? Along with the bedding areas that the deer are using during the winter months, another great place to look is the travel routes that these deer are taking from the bedding locations to the food locations. It might sound obvious, but you have a higher probability of finding these antlers if you're walking the same trails as the deer. If you're aimlessly just walking through the woods, your probability is much lower. You need to be walking the deer trails that the deer are taking from bedding to feeding. So that's what we're going to do here. This is one of the trails we have wrapping around the side of our property. It leads from this bedding location and this food source. It kind of wraps around and heads to another food source and another bedding area. So we're going to walk this. We haven't walked it yet, and see if maybe we can find an antler. What do you think? Let's do it. There's some bones. I think it's just bones. Looks like deer bones though. Those were there last year. I don't know if that bottle was there last year though. Uh-oh. Blake, look at how this trail wasn't here before. And now it's like beat down. I know. Uh-oh, Blake. You got boots on, man? All right. Just like the bedding area that we actually found the shed in earlier in the season, this is another bedding location that the deer frequent a lot during the winter months. We have some thermal cover here. There's a little bit of a hill so they can kind of get out of the way of the wind. But this is another area that we want to be looking for sheds because the deer spend a lot of time here in the winter. Oh yeah, Blake, lots of deer poo in here. This is a pretty good spot to look for one. Look at all the deer poo. You can touch it with a stick, don't touch it with your hands. What do you think, Charlie? Where are those antlers? All right, so now we're gonna be going from this bedding location to another one on the other side of the path here. The deer use both of them a lot as they're adjacent to this food plot just on the other side of this hill. So we're gonna be heading over into this thermal cover here to see if we can't find anything. This will be the first time we've actually looked in there with no snow because it hadn't melted yet. Ready, buddy? Following you, buddy. Look at the ground, man. So this location right here is one of our food plots. It's just over a ½ acre, planted in clover, rye. We threw some leftover brassica seeds in here last season and it did really well. The deer were in here all season. They were hammering it in the late season. And this is where we've actually found 2 of the sheds in the last 2 weeks. So I don't think we're gonna be finding any more here just because we've been in here so much. We probably would have already seen them. But on the south side of the food plot, the snow hasn't fully melted off yet. So there is a chance that there's something underneath the snow. Again, it might sound really obvious, but you wanna be focusing your time on looking where the deer are in January and February. Forget about where they were in the fall. Where are those deer when they're gonna be dropping their antlers? I wasn't really expecting to find anything in this food plot, but we actually just found our 5th shed of the season right in the dead center. So I really don't have any idea how we missed it. Oh, you can't get down, sweetie. I have no idea how we missed it the past couple weeks, but we did. We just walked over it. But it was another 1.5-year-old shed. Now we have a match set on one of our other antlers. But while we're on the south side of our food plot, one of the things I wanted to say is a good place to look for sheds is also in these down trees. If you hinge cut them, or these particular trees we dropped, we're doing some bedding area work on the side of our food plot. We dropped a couple into the food plot. So during January and February, the deer are in there inside those trees getting at those buds. And if the bucks are doing that and their antlers are ready to fall off, that might just be what it takes to knock those antlers off. So the snow is kind of melting down a little bit. So I'm gonna take another look inside these trees to see if there's any antlers inside the branches. So now we're going to head into a hinge cut bedding area that we created last year. That's right off the big food plot that we were just on. Got some deer food. Careful of the pokies, bud. Let's go this way and see what we got. I know, this is what I like to be in here. Not seeing anything over there. All right, let's go closer to the food plot. You're silly girl. So we just moved through one of our hinge cut locations that was only a year old. We don't really have a ton of new growth in there yet, but we moved into this area through kind of a stand of mature white pines. And now we are just inside the edge of that big food plot that we just found the shed on. And this is where the deer really like to bed during the season. They really like to bed here. In January and February, they have these mature white pines. Even though these are old white pines, they're still giving them a little bit of thermal cover, and they're really close to the food. And again, even though this is a mature stand of white pines, they're getting a lot of sunlight from the side of the food plot. So we're getting a lot of growth here on the side. And so the deer really love to bed in here. And this is actually where I found one of the sheds earlier in the season. It was kind of back in there. So we're gonna kind of take a look in here again now that the snow is completely gone, see if maybe there's another one hiding in here somewhere. Now that we've kind of checked the main food plots and the main bedding areas on the property, now we're gonna walk this perimeter deer trail to the back half of our property. We haven't really spent a whole lot of time in the back looking for sheds yet. I'm not really sure if the bucks are using this trail in January and February, but they use it like crazy during the fall. So I thought it'd be a good idea to at least check it for antlers. This is another bedding area on our property that we want to check for sheds. We haven't really checked it yet. This bedding area is used primarily in the fall. It's not used as much during the winter as it's further away from food, but it is a nice thick bedding area, so we do want to make sure we're checking it for shed antlers. All right, come on, sweetie, let's get in there. clearly shed hunting is very exciting. Yeah, buddy? We're heading up there? All right, let's go find the buck bed. Let's go to one of the buck beds here and check that out. If you happen to know where individual bucks were bedding during the season, that's also a great place to look. This location right here is a spot that we know that bucks bed from time to time, so it's a good idea to just make sure that you're checking those individual beds to see if they happen to drop their sheds in those locations. No deer antlers in there. We'll check it out too. It's worth a shot. As he comes in and out. Yep, I would agree there's no antlers in there. All right, let's look at the next spot. Another location that's great to key on when you're trying to find shed antlers are areas where the deer either have to walk through something really thick and they might be kind of crashing their antlers through there, and if their antlers are loose, then they might fall off. Along the same lines, if you can find a location where the deer might have to jump over something, whether that's a drainage ditch, maybe it's a fence. In this location here, we actually have a pretty nice deer trail that runs on and off our property, and there were several trees that have fallen over that the deer have to jump over every time they use this trail. So this is a spot that I really like to look for shed antlers, just in case when the deer land, that's enough to kind of jostle those antlers off their head. So as you can see, shed hunting is not for everybody. She almost made it through her first shed hunting trip, but that pretty much sums it up for the locations that you want to be focusing on when you are shed hunting. You really want to be focusing on those late season food sources, those late season bedding areas with thermal cover. You want to be walking those deer trails that the deer are using to get from the bedding to the feeding locations. And if you can find a deer trail that runs through really thick cover, where those bucks have to crash their loose antlers into all that brush, that might be enough to knock them off their head. And the same thing goes for if you can find an area where the bucks have to jump over something, whether that's a fence row, a ditch, maybe a creek, maybe you have a couple down trees over a path, anywhere where they have to kind of jump over, that landing could be enough to knock those loose antlers off their head. But hopefully that makes sense, guys. If you guys do have any questions or if you have any tips yourself on shed hunting, please drop those in the comment section below. I'll get back to those as soon as I can, and we will see you guys in the next video.